our Facebook page. We're also on YouTube. We are also on whatever's left of Periscope or Twitter. What's going on upstairs in my dining room, Terry? Oh, you got the phone call.
Well, I'll have to decline that call. I'm very, very sorry.
How about your microphone, Terry?
Right. Well, I'm retired now, you see, so I forgot completely about the old microphone. Hey, how about that?
All right, so this is called Live from My Dining Room. Welcome to my dining room. Welcome to Winnipeg.
Thank you very much. It's so nice to be back in Manitoba. You know how fond I am of Manitoba, how fond I am of Winnipeg and all its summer adventures. Complete shite weather here today, unfortunately, but yeah, I love the Peg so much.
Well, we've been talking, I think, at Christmas we got together. I was in Gimli, but we were mourning the fact that you could not come to Winnipeg last year to enjoy the swimming pool and the mosquitoes.
Yeah, I usually make my annual pilgrimage here, and I was unable to do that, so I wasn't able to see you and your boys, whom I love dearly, and hadn't been able to get to the lake to see my friends at the Lake of the Woods, and my buddy Howard Manshine, and Jeff Neal, who's the guitar player from Streetheart, who, of course, has made Winnipeg his new home after many years of going back and forth between the coast and Winnipeg. Jeff is here now. And for anybody who may see this, who knows me in Winnipeg, I'm here for but a moment or two to talk to Matt, visit Matt, swim in his pool, see his boys, again, whom I'm very fond of, love dearly, and meet with the master of the morning, Don Percy, who is a longtime friend of mine, and I haven't been able to see because of the pandemic.
Tell me a little bit about Don Percy, and for everyone else, about first what he meant to you, and for anybody who likes broadcasting and doesn't really know who Don Percy, is. Tell us about him.
One of the things that I always tell young broadcasters, Matthew, as you know, is you have to know the history of the business you're going to go into. So if you're going to be a pilot, it's a good thing to know about the history of aviation and to know some older aviators. If you're going to be a carpenter, it's good to find a really, really good carpenter and get to know him and what he or she did. And the same thing is I've always thought was true of radio. And when I moved out to Manitoba to get my start in 1978, as you and I were discussing just this morning, Don Percy was on the radio here in 1978 at CKY, then known as KY 58, the biggest AM radio station in Manitoba at the time. And Don, to say Don was a star is a complete understatement. Don was a very, very funny morning man with an unbelievably entertaining morning show. He was a world-class communicator, a world-class personality. Had he done what he did in Winnipeg, in New York, or Chicago, he would have ended up on NBC or CBS. I'm convinced of it. And he took time He took time with me and my late friend Jeff Hamilton. Jeff and I were roommates. We were radio junkies. We couldn't believe how talented this man was. And we sheepishly approached him and asked him if he would spend some time with us. And I learned more about the radio business, the history of the radio business in Canada, and tricks of the trade. I learned more from Don. Don was like my university. I haven't made any decisions across a very long career without Don, and that includes my recent retirement. And any move I made, whether it was to go to Q107 in Calgary, take over the show from George Balkan at CJD, all of the things that I've done in radio have not proceeded without a conversation first with Don. And that's what if you're a young broadcaster, find old tapes. Find out who was big in the city that you work in. Don't discard it. Don't dismiss it. Don't say it was another era. Yeah, it was another era and the business was different. But there were massive, giant, huge, capable, talented people on the radio at a time before the internet when there was just radio and television. And some of these talents were huge. And it doesn't matter what city you live in, where you're from, whether it's Doc Harris in Vancouver, it could be Don Percy in Winnipeg, or I think it was Red, the old Red at CJOB. He was another one. George Balkan in Montreal at CJAD. Andy Barry at CBC and CFRB in Toronto. Go back, find these tapes, listen to these people. These guys were giants, and some of them are still around and are just full of wisdom and great suggestions, and they're great teachers. Don, as a matter of fact, was a teacher in Thunder Bay prior to his success at KY. He was a teacher at a school in Thunder Bay. He taught radio and television there. And to this day, at 83 years young, is still teaching me things. I'm having dinner with him tonight. I can't wait.
He was probably the funniest appearance in that last week going up to your alleged retirement.
Yeah.
Boy, when he was just on fire, and you had some big names come on your show between Brother Jake Edwards and Peppermint Patty and Cindy Aikman and everybody who showed up, but Don, oh man, he had me in stitches.
Well, as you pointed out last night, he comes in, the guns are already in the air as soon as the microphone is on. He was that's Don. He still lights up a room, and I'm looking forward to it because he's so entertaining, and he hasn't been on the radio in Winnipeg for I don't know how many years. He still gets recognized in places where we go. It's like, hey, Master, do a growl for me. All kinds of, I love the man dearly. I can't say enough nice things about him.
And he's the guy who was 747, not an airplane, just the time.
Yes. As a matter of fact, the T-shirts that I was going to say we put out, but it's my wife, Jess, who put the T-shirt idea together. They wanted to surprise me the morning of my last show. Jess and a couple of people from the station came in wearing the T-shirts that said 747, not an airplane, just the time. I should have brought a T-shirt for Don because it's a direct steal from his show. I did it as a tribute to him when I started back in 1984. And people used to call and complain about how stupid it was, and they didn't understand what it meant and what was I saying, and it wasn't funny. That dumbass thing you do every morning. It became a catchphrase, and we did these limited run of T-shirts that people in Montreal are now wearing. So if you didn't, what I love about the T-shirts is if you didn't listen to the show, if you weren't a fan of the radio station or a fan of mine, you see somebody wearing a T-shirt that says 747, not an airplane, just the time, and you think, the hell does that mean? What is that? But for people who listen to the program, they get a kick out of it, and because it was a lot more work than my wife counted on, they are a collector's edition now because people are asking us to print more, and she doesn't want to.
Yeah, and also Don's going to want a cut of that.
Yeah, he is. As a matter of fact, I'm sure he'll want me to buy dinner tonight with some of the proceeds from his phrase that I stole.
Terry, I don't know if you can see, but Brad Karp from Kelowna, he does mornings at 6.3. He grew up listening to you, by the way, and is also a recipient of the Steve Young Broadcaster of the Year Award. Well
deserved. Brad is a very bright, very talented, up-and-coming young broadcaster. And I'm a fan of Brad's. Brad and I have had email exchanges a few times a year. He's been supportive of me and has said some very nice things about me. And as a Montreal, he's doing what I did. Brad's doing what I did. He's a Montreal kid who got out of Montreal and landed in a pretty nice spot. I mean, not right now with the fires and everything, Brad, but has found himself a really nice spot in the interior of British Columbia, which is a beautiful place to continue to polish your craft. And remember the name, because it won't be long before Brad will be on a radio station in either Toronto or Vancouver soon.
Tell me a little bit about Steve Young, because as we were driving in from the airport, you mentioned that Steve Young used to live in that building and was only a record away from 92 City FM, where he was program director. And then, of course, Steve went on to KISW and other great things.
Yeah. By the way, Brad wants to know if I brought bagels. I didn't bring bagels. I've been out of the city, Brad. After I retired, I got out of Montreal. I snuck away to an undisclosed location and stayed off the grid. And Matt convinced me to get back on the grid today. And I'll be back on my social media pages as we approach the fall, and I've got some projects coming up. So I didn't bring any bagels to answer Brad's question. And Matt, your question about Steve Young. The award that Brad won for Young Broadcasters was named for Steve Young, and it was, it was appropriate because Steve was the music director at City FM when I came down from Churchill in June of 1978. Steve was the music director and the assistant program director, and Steve was the one who showed me how to run the board, and he was dealing with a lot of us who, we're just a pack of green kids in the basement in Polo Park, and Steve was an amazing teacher and spotter of young talent and was very, very encouraging. And he really deserves. He passed away far too soon a number of years ago of a heart attack on vacation, and all his friends miss him dearly. There's a Steve Young tribute page on Facebook if you want to seek it out and find out more about him. He was a real radio giant. He worked both in Canada and the United States. And he was very, very good to me, and I thought it was appropriate that they name a Young Broadcasters Award after him. And when I landed in Winnipeg yesterday, Matt came to get me at the airport, and the drive from the airport, if you know the city at all, as we come along, is it Ellis? No, not Ellis. Kenniston? No.
King Edward.
Yeah, King Edward, thank you. As you come along King Edward, I get such a wave of memory because we drive sort of past where Polo Park is, where the radio station was in 78 when I arrived. And when I asked Steve Young where he lived, there was Steve and another guy whose name is the program director at KY58. When I asked both of them where they lived, they said, I live about a record and a half away. And I thought that was such a radio guy's way of telling you that they were about 6 minutes from the radio station. In Gary's case, a record and a half, because he was a program director at KY58, it was singles. So that meant he was about 5 minutes away. And in Steve's case, he was a program director at the rock station, the album rock station. So a record and a half for him was closer to 8 minutes, I guess. And Steve liked to live in close proximity to the station so he could be there in the blink of an eye. He was very, very, very passionate about what he did. And Winnipeg holds all kinds of memories for me like that, whether we're driving by Steve's old building, by Polo Park, by BDI, by all of these places that meant a lot to me when I was 20.
One of the things about the internet, Terry, is that, a lot of people will comment about looks. So we want to say hi to Warren Kopnick, who says my hair is looking as good as the Buffalo Bills.
Warren.
And Avery.
Hi, Warren.
Avery.
Warren was so nice to me when I retired. Hi, Warren. I'm glad you're checking in.
And Avery's watching and saying we're looking good. But Avery, of course, reminded me to get you some Genie's cake.
Yes, when last night, I wish I can't hold my phone up to the. Well, you know what? Maybe I can.
Oh my God! You went for a walk?
No, I didn't. No. You know what? Hang on a second. This will bore people to tears. But if anybody is watching and is from Winnipeg, There'll be this. I wonder if can people see that?
Sure.
Can you see that? This is a picture of Matt's peanut butter in the cupboard. I sent to my wife. It expired in 2017, and I thought it had a funny taste, Matt. So you might want to throw that out.
Why don't you throw it out?
And this is a picture of. I hope people can see this. Anybody who's watching, this is the genie's cake, and if you can see, it says "Happy Retirement, Terry." And anybody who's from Winnipeg recognizes that box. That is also that's a Winnipeg landmark. Avery and Matt threw me such a nice dinner last night. Ribs from the White House, not on Pennsylvania Avenue, down here in Charleswood, and a genie's cake for dessert, disguised as fruit, or described to me as fruit, with some spectacular bottles of wine. It was quite a night, Matthew. Thank you.
Did you ever know Pat Cardinal?
I did. Pat worked for Moffat, as I recall.
CFRW.
Yeah. Oh, was he at CFRW?
Yeah.
Okay.
Warren saying CFRW.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Pat and I would have crossed paths at different events. Back in the day, but it's funny because in the early days of radio was the 1940s, but back in the 70s and 80s, radio was uber competitive. So CFRW was owned by Chum and CKY was owned by Moffat, and the two were such fierce competitors. We rarely crossed paths, and when we did, it was usually to take a dig or a shot at each other, because we were young and full of piss and vinegar and idiots.
All right.
Do we have an audience? Is that how many people watch this, Matt? Is it 3 people?
I got 7 up here.
You got 7 now. Well,
yeah, we got 7.
All right. Well, I've got my glasses. I got my 25 cents for being on the show.
And also,
my Coke Zero.
I actually don't often get a response from Twitter.
Really?
Yeah, not often do we get a response, but we are live on Periscope or Twitter or whatever it is.
That is. Okay.
But here's probably maybe it's a handle that but somebody's watching us, and thank you to Tedeschi67.
We're on the webnet.
We're live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook and on Twitter. So if you have questions for Terry, just let me know.
Yeah, when there was so much for people who don't know who I am or what I'm doing here, I had a radio show in Montreal, and I was on the radio in Montreal for a very long time. And I retired from that show May 28th, and there was such a hullabaloo that was produced by the people, and I want to be very clear about this. My good friends and the good people at the radio station in Montreal, not people in other offices, the people at the radio station in Montreal who had a great deal of respect for me and were very kind to me, said, it's COVID, we can't have a party, but we're going to give you a send-off. And they didn't ask anybody in other offices to approve that. They just went ahead and did it. And it was quite a brouhaha from May 4th, when I announced I was retiring, until May 28th, when I retired. It was crazy. I mean, there was people talking about it and articles about it and French papers and English papers, and the mayor wished me well, and it was crazy, and it was so much Terry, I thought, this must be a giant pain in the ass for anybody that's listening to the radio station. And I said, look, at the end of the month when I retire, I'm going to go away. Well, first of all, I needed to sleep. I needed to recover from 35 years of getting up in the middle of the night. And I stayed off of social media. I still have not been on my social media. A lot of people have bought shirts and posted pictures of them in the shirts. And, you know, I've seen the pictures. I haven't clicked on anything. I just haven't been on social media, which is a nice break, by the way. I've been talking so long, I almost forget my point. But I wanted to say that's what I'm doing here. Matt said, why don't you come on and do the podcast with me? We'll do the live thing. And, when you're ready, you can go back on social media. And I will. In the coming weeks, I'm going to go back on my Facebook page, my Twitter page, and my Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. I can't do 30-second funny videos, and also I'm 63. I don't think I should be on TikTok. But you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And in the coming weeks, I'm hoping to have a couple of things to talk about. So,
Warren Kopnick is very surprised that you're in my house because not many people like Matt, he says.
That's very true, Warren. I couldn't agree with you more. Matt and I have been friends since Matt was 16 years old, and we were talking about that last night because his kids are all now well past 16. We've known each other a very, very long time, and I'm not just close with Matt, but I would say I'm close with most of his family. As a matter of fact, if not for his late father, this is all the money I would have.
I'm not even sure that's yours, to be honest.
Yeah, it was stuck to my laptop when I took my laptop out of the briefcase.
Okay, that's yours then. I don't know. I mean, we could have, by the way, today just gotten in the car and gone up to Gimli.
Yeah, we could have, but I must admit it isn't a Manitoba moody kind of day. The old song was Manitoba Moody Morning, I think was the song, like in 1960. You ever heard that?
No.
You should look it up. It's a real piece of fromage. But it was a nice tribute to Manitoba in the summertime, I think. But today's not that kind of day. And do I want gold eye from Gimli?
Some fish?
I don't know if I should put that in my suitcase, Avery.
I think maybe it's just for dinner Thursday before.
Oh, okay. All right.
Might be a little snack.
No. I you know what? You're taking me to that Italian restaurant come hell or high water. If I bring my passport, I have to bring my vaccination. You have to bring your passport. Where are your papers?
Hey, we're in Winnipeg, and this is and by the way, I was so happy that I think it was your late friend Kenny Shields, who you introduced me to. First time I met him was 1995 backstage in Edmonton. We lost him a couple of years ago. But Warren, by the way, Avery says the gold eye smelly. Okay. But Warren Kopnick wants a Street Heart story.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I want to get this right because just this morning I was while you were on the phone doing your work at the Sound Off Podcast Network offices, Jeff Neal posted today that it was back on this date in 2017. It was actually 4 years ago today we lost Kenny. And if you're a Street Heart fan, Warren, I don't know if you've gone on to Facebook. There is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tribute to Kenny that Jeff has put on Facebook with Kenny's version of the old Spirit song, Nature's Way. It's an absolutely beautiful rendition of a record that really didn't get the attention I thought it deserved. A few years ago, before Street Heart went back on the road, Jeff Neal took Kenny into his studio in Vancouver and said to Kenny, why don't you sing some of your favorite old songs, and let's see if we can rearrange some of them and put some of them together. And he does such a beautiful version of so many of his old favorite songs, and Nature's Way is one of them. And Jeff posted a video with the soundtrack to the video being Kenny's version of that old song, Nature's Way. If you're on Facebook, go see it. And if you were close with Kenny like I was, Kenny became a good friend of mine. And I tear up when I think of his passing. There are so many Streetheart stories, and I'd like to put some of them in the book because I'm toying with the idea of writing a book. I left the radio business in 1981, I think, for a couple of years, and I went to work for Streetheart. I saw Streetheart at the Playhouse Theater in Winnipeg, and I fell in love with them. And a year later, I was working for them. I'd gotten to know their manager very well, and he convinced me to come and work for the band. And the first thing he did was he put me on the road with them. And I flew out to Halifax and joined the band in Halifax. And I went across the country with them. And it was, gosh, I mean, one book could be just those stories alone. But I think some of our favorite stories backstage with Kenny are probably stories that shouldn't be shared. And one of the great things about Kenny was he was so good with people and so good with people who were fans of his. There was a time in the late 1970s and early 1980s where they were as big a band as any band there was in Canada. I remember being on the road with them and doing 19,000 people at the Edmonton Coliseum, 10,000 people in Winnipeg Arena, another 17,000 in Vancouver. Kenny was he was a Canadian music star. They won the Juno Award back, I think, in 1978 or 79 for Best New Artist. There's a great picture in that tribute of Kenny in a tuxedo. And some of my favorite times with Kenny were just Kenny, Jeff, and a guitar. You could... I just there are so many stories, Warren. I to be honest with you, I just don't know which ones to tell. But on the day where we mark his passing, I'd like to remember him as a guy who was great to his fans, loved a good time, really embraced being a rock star. He loved being a rock star. He loved playing live, and I think he was arguably one of the best frontmen in the business, not just the Canadian business. When you watch Kenny lead the band, you were reminded of Jagger and Rod Stewart and people of that ability and ilk. And we miss him.
Yeah, actually, I remember calling you, and actually called you from the upstairs room, and I think, it was July. It was a July day.
Yeah, it was a July. I was. As a matter of fact, I was out in British Columbia at the time, and unfortunately, I had just had Jeff was still living in British Columbia, and I had dinner with Jeff Neal a couple of nights before his passing, and Jeff said to me, "I have to tell you, Kenny is not doing well at all," and it was Jeff who called me to give me the terrible news. But also he had a history of heart problems in his family. His father struggled with heart issues, and it was heart issues that took him in the end. And Warren still remembers a time when I was in Toronto with the band, and I brought him to my mom and dad's house when my parents lived in Toronto. I brought him to my mom and dad's house for dinner, and Warren happened to be there. And remembers it fondly. I know he tells that story a lot.
What do you got left for the rest of the summer? And will you go back to social media at some point?
Uh-huh. I will. Listen. I didn't have anything to say. I didn't have anything to add. You know, you and I were talking just before I turned the microphone on. You know, I'm not a big fan of the Twitter mob. I'm not a big fan of the angry screaming minority. So, and I don't have anything to add to the conversation. I don't have anything to add to the zeitgeist. I didn't have anything to say, and I did a video. My wife shot a video. Jess shot a video for me, so I could tell people the T-shirts were being shipped, and thank people for helping us donate to two of my favorite causes in Montreal, and also to tell people that the shirts were indeed on the way. We had said 6 to 8 weeks delivery, and all the shirts were made to order. And like I said, it was a process that involved a lot more work than I thought. And at the 4-week mark, I started to get nervous because I don't like to make promises that I can't keep. And Jess said, "Look, give it a couple of days. The shirts are going to be shipped." And when they were shipped, with my good friend Sue, and can you hold on a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is my wife. I just want to tell her. Hi, sweetheart. Hello? Sweetie, can I call you back in 2 minutes? Matt's got me on a live podcast. I'll call you back, okay? Yeah. Okay. There you go. What was I saying?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So we shot this video of me just thanking people for ordering the T-shirts and telling them that they were on their way. And a lot of people said, "Hey, it's nice to hear your voice again. It's nice to see you." A lot of people said I looked rested, which I didn't understand. But anyway.
Well, I mean,
I guess it comes from, actually having regular hours now, which I do.
Yeah, not getting up in the middle of the night.
Yes, sir.
Less stress. How you sleeping?
Great. It's one of the things that I've enjoyed about retirement. I've enjoyed not looking at the clock. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing my watch today, but I don't wear it very often now. And I spent 35, almost 40 years looking side-eye. We'd be like at somebody's house and I'd be looking at the clock all the time, or turning down invitations to go out during the week. I didn't want to go to hockey games on a Wednesday night because you had to leave it during the second period. That kind of thing. Those, that sort of constant clock watching was so ridiculous. So that's gone. And so now, and my wife has said to me, she loves the fact that I'm not doing what we call the airplane sleep, which is this. Every time we watch television, because, we're in bed like at 10:30, 11 o'clock, and my wife is still working, so she's up for work, and I roll out of bed around 8 o'clock, and I've tried to keep a little bit of a schedule. I go for a morning walk. I have coffee. I go to the computer. I have a little bit of a schedule because I just don't want to be a couch potato. But gosh, the having regular hours. This is all just 63. Most of the luggage under the eyes from the middle of the night getting up are gone.
All right. Well, I think we've exhausted.
Bored people?
Well, no,
we've bored people enough.
That's enough social media. That's enough. We can be done with it now. We can get back to summer.
Okay, very, very good.
Let's go find something to do for the rest of the
Well, I keep saying, am I allowed to do this? Yeah. We're allowed to do anything. Can you see the pool?
Yeah.
There you go. Now, why would be, even with shitty weather, why wouldn't we be out there? I wonder.
Well, we're going.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I'll meet you there.
This was fun, Matt. Thank you.
That's
and thank you to the dozen people or half dozen people who tuned in. It's getting my chops back for going back on social media.
We now resume your regularly scheduled summer.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.